Welcome to Power Up Your Practice. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, a law firm owner and law practice management consultant, author, podcaster, and adjunct professor. Each week, I'm so excited to invite other guests on to be able to learn from the inspiring minds and share practical tips so that we can all work smarter, serve our clients even better, and grow our firm. But after all, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. So let's power up together and continue to create the law firm and the life you deserve. Welcome back, everyone. This is Ruby Powers with Power Up Your Practice, and excited to have such a wonderful guest. He is a partner at TSR Injury Law, but I think most notably, he's the oldest US Winter Olympian ever. So I have Rich Ruohonen on today, and I'm so excited to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. I'm excited to be here.
So, like a lot to unpack just by, so we saw you in the news and we were like, that's cool. You're not just a lawyer, but you're Olympian. And so I guess, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career journey and then how you got into the Olympics?
Sure. So, I graduated from law school here in Minnesota in 1996, and about that same time, I had curled as a younger, a junior for years, and then I took a little time off for law school, obviously, but got back into it in 2002, and also was in a full-time trial lawyer career, so it wasn't always the easiest. But I started playing down pretty heavy to go to the Olympics in early 2000s. And at the same time was being a trial lawyer. So I had tried, I don't know, to be honest, I stopped counting, but it's around 80 to 90 cases now.
Oh, wow.
Been pretty successful, only lost, I believe, 12. So I've been in gotten a little bit lucky here and there, but worked hard. And I have been 6-time Minnesota Lawyer of the Year by Minnesota Lawyer, our legal publication. And so I've had a pretty good career, had some big results and verdicts, and been lucky enough to just recently make the Olympics. I had tried for over 25 years. Actually, my first Olympic trials was in 88, but our Olympic playdowns was in 1988. But then that was on a lower level. I never made the finals. And then for about 25 years, I've been curling pretty hardcore along with work, and just missed the Olympics several times. I've had 2 national championships and like 9, I think, seconds, and a couple of thirds, either in the Olympic trials or the national championships. And then was fortunate enough to go to the Olympics this year as an alternate with Team Casper, and also won the Senior World Championship just 3 weeks ago. So it's been a crazy and fun year, needless to say. And I got a little bit fortunate. One of the people on our team, I played with a bunch of young guys, 24 to 26 in the Olympic side, not the senior side, obviously. And one of them got sick. So I had basically retired after about 2 years ago. My mixed doubles team, we took second to go to the Olympics 4 years ago, and then third. My men's team took third. So I thought it was pretty much over for me. But I got called out of retirement because one of the guys got sick with what's called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which many people probably know what that is, but it's a nerve and autoimmune condition that made it almost impossible for him to curl. So I joined that team in October of 24. So just, almost 2 years ago, and played with him a lot more the first year when he was sick, and then he got a little better, but still had problems. So I stayed on as the alternate, and we were fortunate enough to win the Olympic trials. And then we had to go to another event called the Olympic qualification event, qualified number 1 out of there to make one of the last 2 spots to go to the Olympics. So we went to the Olympics this February, and I got in to a game. And so I ended up becoming the oldest US Winter Olympian ever at 54 years old. So been a fun year.
Wow. Well, I think you were making headlines, and people were, well, first of all, I think some people don't know what curling is a little bit, maybe. How would you describe it for those listening who aren't familiar?
Curling is a lot like, I know a lot of people say it's like shuffleboard on ice, but I would say it's more like bocce ball. If you've ever played that
Okay.
sport where you try to get closer to the middle, it's you slide 42-pound rocks with a handle on them on ice, and you sweep in front of it to make it go farther, straighter, or make it curl more. So unlike bocce ball, where you can throw it over the top of another ball, you got to kind of slide on ice and go around. The rock slides on ice and goes around it. So the rock will take like a arcing path down the ice. The harder you throw it, the straighter it goes. The lighter you throw it, the more it curls generally. And then you sweep to put it in the right spot. So it's like chess and bocce ball on ice, I guess, would be the easiest way to explain it.
Oh, and so I think first of all they were watching the Winter Olympics and then were like, impressed by that. But then to hear about your backstory as a lawyer and sort of balancing this all, like how I think what you just sharing like the history of it, that you've been involved in this sport for a really long time and very engaged in this. Like, how did you manage being a partner in your legal practice at the same time?
Well, I would say, a lot of hard work. I use every spare minute that I possibly can, especially back then when there wasn't as many distractions with all the apps and, phones and stuff now. But I would work on planes because we fly around the country and the world, frankly, and mostly spend a lot of time in Canada too to curl because we play tournaments all year long that qualify you for different events. And then you have to win your national championship to go to the world, or win the Olympic trials to go to the Olympics. And so I spent a lot of time like on planes writing opening statements or writing cross exams or things like that. A lot of weekends where I'm not curling, I am working 7 days a week at times, unfortunately, to have both careers, I guess you would call it. An athletic career and a trial lawyer career is not always the easiest. I was able, though, to balance it pretty well. And to be honest, I think a lot of people will agree that in the legal field, it got a little easier since COVID because people learned how to work from home and learned how to work from the road. And courts now allow us, rather than it used to be I'd have to drive 25 miles and wait in court for 4 hours for my appearance, on a motion or whatever. And now you can sit and work at your computer. You can do it from your hotel room, up in the middle of nowhere in Canada, where I often go. Like Saskatchewan or Alberta or British Columbia or whatever, or Toronto, Ontario. So, so now I can do a lot of that from the road, and I can work around my my conflicts, I guess, primarily. Most judges are pretty understanding when you say, hey, look, I'm playing in the national championship.
I'm an Olympian.
Yeah, to represent the United States of America. Or they were really understanding with the Olympics. But even just along that way, when I didn't make the Olympics, but I had like a big event or a national championship coming up, they would be like, oh, that's great. We'll move the trial back or move it up or whatever. Also work a lot. Most people are out playing golf in the summer as lawyers, although I like golf and I'm not that great at it, but I play a lot less, and I work a lot more usually in the summers. Just because I need help. I cover stuff for in the firm I've been in since 2009, TSR. We have a lot of people that can help. And so they've been really helpful. We're all like, we'll help each other if I'm out of town and can't do a motion or whatever. And then I'll help them more often in the summers when they they need a day off or whatever. So it's one thing is to have good people around you too that are willing to help and also share. And they were super happy that I made the Olympics after trying this long, and so they were willing to do whatever. And my staff really helped out. I mean, it was a team effort. But I did, for the first time in my life, not work for about 2 weeks, straight weeks, which usually you're on the road. I did answer a few emails or forward them on, but that's about all I really did. So, but it's really, I think, it's using a lot of your spare time on any second you can to try to do whatever you need to do to stay up to date, and having good team around you obviously matters. But I just think being able to work on the road more than we used to be able to has been a probably what allowed me to continue my career up to, now I'm 55, but 54 in the Olympics. It's that whole being able to just do what we're doing now, talk on Zoom, meet with clients on Zoom versus having to go to their house. It's really saved a lot of time and made it easier to do this.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the Winter Olympics. The two people that struck in my mind was you. So I'm really glad to get you on the show. And then the Turkish sport shooter. My husband's Turkish, but like the whole memes about him. It was Yusuf, about him just like no gear and just shooting, and then like the youngins competing in the same sport who had like all this gear, and he was just like had his hand in his pocket and just anyway, I remember. But so what are some of the core values? I mean, you've basically been able to excel at these two very, very difficult areas. Tell me about your success as a trial lawyer and what your core values that make you better at what you do, and how you've been successful.
Well, I think at core values, I have to give a commencement speech coming up at the law school here, Hamlin Mitchell, and that's what my speech is about. So I kind of thought about, when I've done some of these interviews, like following the Olympics and during the Olympics, and everybody's like, what do you attribute your success to in both of these areas, and also just finally getting there and having that success. And I think some of those core values are things like discipline. I mean, doing things even when you don't feel like it. I leave my house sometimes 3 or 4 days a week when we're not traveling to go work out with a trainer and my team. I leave my house at 5:15 in the morning. Then I go and I do an hour to drive 30 miles to go work out, and then do an hour and a half workout, and then have to work 10-hour day and maybe do some curl at night. So sometimes you have to do things even when you don't feel like it. And even this morning, I got up still to work out with my guys, even though I'm not sure if I'm going forward for another 4 years. I don't think I can handle it, but we're talking about it. And, I didn't want to get out of bed this morning because I was super tired, but I did it even though I didn't feel like it. And I think, determination, I think, is a big deal. If you're determined, I think, nothing can stop you, frankly, if you really work hard at it and you really want to, win, I guess, when you're talking about sports and trial and being in trial. I think also too, I tell, part of my job on this team was to be a mentor. And I said, there's always two things you can control, and it's attitude and effort. You might not get the breaks and you might lose that trial or you might lose that game. But if you put on a good attitude and you give it all you got, then usually success will come. And I think just being consistent is another thing, just in practice, and it's kind of what transforms average people into excellence in various jobs, or as being an athlete. If you're willing to just put in the work, put in the time it takes to understand what you need to do, and keep the repetition of throwing a lot of rocks, of trying cases, that is super important. It's super important. It's not always the quantity, but it's the quality of that repetition, I think. And then I would say the last thing, and what I've been passionate about my whole life, is trial work and curling. So, you have to be passionate about it. You have to really enjoy what you're doing. And sometimes they're not always going to enjoy it. I'm not going to lie and say, like, I enjoy going to every single trial, or enjoy a 2-week trial where you're working 18, 20-hour days sometimes to get ready for the next day, and working that weekend. But it's still that passion that drives you. And if you're passionate about what you do, I think success kind of comes with that, So I would say, those are kind of the core values that I think have made me a successful trial lawyer. And I'm also very competitive. Obviously you wouldn't be doing this if you weren't at this level and this age. And I always tell people, like, if someone makes me mad, it makes me work twice as hard, and I already work twice as hard as most people. So I just feel like I was in trial one time, and I remember this defense attorney was just not being very nice to my client or to me. And I was, because I try to keep things cordial and funny. I'm kind of a outgoing, talkative kind of guy. And when you're, I had a defense attorney that wasn't being very nice, and that made me stay up an extra 2 hours a night to get ready for the next day. Because I was, no matter what, I was going to smoke them in the trial, and we did,
Wow.
and got a
Congrats.
multi-million-dollar verdict. And so, those are the kind of things that I think drive me personally, and I think can drive a lot of people. And if you focus on those things, that discipline, determination, attitude, effort, and that passion, I think you can be successful in anything you do.
Yeah, that's such a great reminder. Do you ever, I think have any of the strengths and skills that made you a really great lawyer help you make you a really good athlete? Like, is a lot of what you just said about the determination and the passion, or have there been some, how one has helped you be better at the other and vice versa?
Sure. Yeah, I think like a great example is in sports. If we want to get better at something, right, we practice. So if you are a basketball player, you shoot free throws and 3-pointers. If you're a baseball guy, you're taking grounders and fly balls, and you're hitting every day. And in curling, we call it throwing rocks. We go out and practice, and we might throw 60 to 80 rocks in a 2-hour practice, right, to get better. And in the law, lawyers don't do that. Lawyers don't practice. They think they can walk into a courtroom and give an opening statement and think everybody's going to understand what they said. And that's not the way we do it at my firm. And I think I helped institute that. We're going to practice. Like, you want to give in, you're not going into trial unless you've given your opening usually twice to a bunch of different people. And we call it Fight Club. So we'll take, we have a staff of about 50 people. We'll take 20 of them into a conference room, and you got to go give your opening statement in front of them, and then they're going to tell you everything that they think you did wrong, what they didn't understand. We're not really there to give compliments in the first practice, because it's not going to make you better if you're just constantly, everybody says, oh, it sounds great. We need people, we really want the criticisms of what didn't you understand. And so we call it Fight Club for that reason. And the partners have to do it too. This isn't just my associate does it. I'm trying a case in about a month, and I got to give that opening statement to everybody. And sometimes, in one of the biggest cases of my life where we got an 8-figure verdict, I think I gave it 20 sometimes. And so that is my opening statement, that was. And so I think we don't do enough as lawyers to practice. And so, and I hear it all the time. People are like, oh, I just went into that trial and gave my opening and I didn't expect this. Well, you didn't expect it because you didn't practice it. So also, I think just psychology, a lot of things in sports. I've been at this sport for 40 years since the 80s. And so what I've seen the growth, right, of the sport in psychology, like sports psychology. I had always been one that was trying to figure out juror psychology. So I've read a lot of books on it. I've done, a lot of focus groups and mock trials. And then in curling, I started to realize, boy, how you talk to people really matters, just like in a courtroom, right? Like if I say, don't throw it too hard, well, you can't talk in a negative. Like you want to talk in a positive, because your mind, in order to get over the negative, has to see the negative. So if I say, don't throw it too hard, that person is more likely to throw it hard. Just like with jurors, how you talk to them in a courtroom matters, right? If I say, don't think about a purple elephant right now, no matter what you do, you can't help it. You see a purple elephant in order to not see it. And so how I talk to jurors really matters. I think I learned that a little bit more from my sport, but a little bit across the board, because I was reading, psychology of jurors books and things like that. So, but there's a lot of crossover there on how you talk to people and team dynamics and how you lead a a trial team, or how you lead a group of people at your firm, and how you want to lead. As in curling, we have a skip that's called like the quarterback of the team, right? So that's kind of who I am in both positions. So you really have to learn how to talk to people to get the best out of them. So a lot of that is psychology, and we've been studying that for only about 15 years in sports, at least at my level. Like, it wasn't a huge thing back in, the 90s or the early 2000s. And so that is, I think, helped across the board with both things. Those are a couple of things. There's a lot, I mean, there's a lot more crossovers, but yeah, I think just that you think about a trial, like you're in a 2-week trial and I'm in a week-long competition. There's going to be those up and down days where, we might win 4 in a row and then lose 2 in a row in a weekend. And we thought we were made the playoffs, and now we're 4-2 and we're battling to get there. Sort of the same thing in a long trial. Like, you have these ups and downs. It's a roller coaster ride. Your witness screws up and you got to fix it. And the next, one day you have everything go well, and the next day you feel like you're going to lose. So, those things, I think, just being tired and being able to persevere, and, that understanding that today is a new day. We can always make this trial better and still win it. And so it's kind of that mentality of that, that attitude and effort, and don't give up, never give up kind of thing, which is, I think, one of the mottos I live by. It's not over till it's over, sort of thing. And that's more of the athlete in me, I would say, but it absolutely goes right towards trial work too. So those are a few of the things that I think there is a big crossover between the two. And I think that is what's helped me get better, be a better lawyer. The last thing I'd say is, in trial work, I've always been willing to try new things, things that I've made up on my own, things I've ripped off from other lawyers, and I'm more than always willing to give them credit. I don't say I did it, but I watch a lot of podcasts, lawyer podcasts, or listen to them, and also watch some on video like this. And you can learn a lot from what other people have tried. And in curling, sometimes we thought, oh, we just throw as many rocks as we can. We don't need to do anything different. We just need to practice. And we started to realize over the last 10 years, like, there are new things you can do. You can figure out ways to sweep where we can make the rock curl a little bit more, or go a little straighter, and technique stuff that we didn't really focus on back then. And I think that's been part of why I think some of my success in curling, our teams have worked on new things. How can we get better at this one little thing that might make one more shot a game and be the difference between winning and losing? Because at that level that we play at, it is often, you're throwing in an 8-end game, we're throwing 64 rocks. And if you can get 2 or 3 rocks, make 2 or 3 more rocks a game, we can win. Same thing with being a trial lawyer. I've always tried new things. The thing I hate worse is when someone says to me, we can't do that in Minnesota. I said, where does it say that? Where is the case that says I can't do this? And so I'm always willing to try new things with jurors, or I'm always willing to tell them what their job is. A lot of, and I think that goes back to being a skip on a team, kind of the quarterback. I got to tell my guys, hey, this is what we got to do right now, and give them that kind of pump up speech before the game and sometimes during the game. And I'm not afraid to tell jurors, this is your job. We talked about this in voir dire, and you said you could award pain and suffering damages. So if someone in that room, when you go back in that jury room, I can almost guarantee you someone's going to say, I don't believe in this. Well, that's not right, because they shouldn't be on this jury, because the people that said that, they're gone. Okay. And you have a job to do. And if you don't want to do your job, you shouldn't be here right now. So I'm not afraid to tell people that. And I know a lot of lawyers are. They are absolutely scared to tell the jury it's their job. And I'm not. And that's part of, I think, that leadership role that I need to take as an athlete has kind of taught me that. Don't be afraid to say things that people don't want to hear. Right. So, or are afraid to say. Don't be afraid to say that. Right. So those are just a few things of the crossover. I think it's ever present in everything between the two.
Well, I'm very inspired just listening to your stories and what drives you. But like what overall, like, it sounds like you work round the clock. What ultimately is inspiring you to do what you do?
Well, obviously, being a personal injury lawyer, I like to help people. I've always been that kind of person in my family, where people come to with their problems. So I like to help people, and I know it's their one chance. Whereas I can always go on to the next case. And if I don't believe in my case or my client, then I should settle that case. But most often, I believe in them, and that means a lot to me to be successful for them. um, and even one of the cases I lost, I remember the client just knew I fought for him, and they knew it just was the wrong jury, or some things went wrong and not the perfect case. And that person gave me one of the nicest reviews ever, as far as like an online review, and wrote a letter. And so I think sometimes we need someone who will fight for us, someone who will say that, try to right the wrong. Even if you're not always successful, you need we people, who are having those problems and their life has changed, they get one chance. And if I'm going to take that chance with them, then I need to make it right. I need to give it everything I have. I think I gave uh, a quote from Hubert H. Humphrey, where he said, like, the moral test of government is how government treats people in the dawn of their life, which is the children, those in the twilight of their life, the elderly, and those in the shadows of their life, the sick, the needy, and the disabled. And I like to have that same quote, but just say people, because I think it applies to people too. It's how we treat people that are hurt. How do we want to help them? How we treat the elderly and the children. I do a lot of abuse cases involving daycares with children. And so I become kind of the go-to guy probably in Minnesota for that. And that means a lot to me that they trust me with their children's injuries or problems, and that I can hopefully help these kids out. So that's kind of, I think that's probably what it is for me, is just helping people. And of course, it never hurts to be a person that doesn't like to lose. Um, uh, but I also try, in my losses, I probably learned more than most of my wins. Both being an athlete and being a trial lawyer. And you always think you could do something better, even in your good results. I always look at, how can I be better? I do it in sports and I do it here. And you got to at some point give yourself some props too for, for what got you there. Cause I said it was, I know in a lot of my interviews since the Olympics, people are like, what do you think got you here? And I said, hard work, but a little bit of luck. But then when you look back at those core values I just listed off to you, is it really luck when that's what you do every day and how you live your life? And sure, maybe a little, but my paralegal, in fact, said to me, I don't think it's luck with you. When I told her, because she said, that's just what you do. That's what you exuberate, that confidence and that discipline and determination, and it rubs off on your clients a little bit too. So we can pull that trial win off, so anyway, that's what I would say probably on that.
Well, I also remember you from the Olympics because of a press conference you had, and you were talking about the rule of law and ICE activities in Minnesota. Do you want to share something around that time?
Yeah. So, at that time in Minnesota, the crap was hitting the fan, for a better word. I'd like to throw in there, but it was bad around here. And I knew, I had said, someone is going to get really hurt or killed. This is going to happen. And we had been talking about it here, and my, people in my firm had been helping, I giving money or delivering groceries to people they don't know and things like that. And this was all happening in the 2 weeks before I was leaving. So I was a little bit strapped as far as how much time I could spend. But, I had people around me doing it. And, Renee Good was killed. And then Alex Preddy was killed right when we were, I think, in our last practice weekend, right before we left to the Olympics. And this is, 10, 15 miles. Both killings were right by my house, and
Wow.
We've had a lot go on in Minnesota the last, 10 years or so. And this was just another thing. And as a lawyer, we need to speak up about the rule of law when it's not being followed. It's our job. And I don't care what side of the aisle you are on, what was going on in Minnesota was wrong. And I said that, there's no shades of gray. This is completely wrong. And we had a long talk about it because I think the women's team and our team both felt this way, but we needed someone to say it. And we knew there was going to be some backlash, right? Like there's always crazy people that threaten your life and all that. And since I was the alternate and I was the old guy and I had, I've had online abusers before because I'm a personal injury lawyer. You can imagine what they say, and nobody likes us until they get hurt and then they want to use us, right? And then they call me. So I had dealt with it. And I also thought just because I wasn't playing every game that I could deal with it better, and because of my age, because, the guys on my team are between 24 and 27. They don't speak for a living. And then the women's team, they're all friends of mine. And I grew up with two of them. They're a little younger than me, but they suffer abuse that nobody knows. Online abuse when you're in the Olympics, and things about their bodies, and things about, two of them just had kids, and why aren't you at home in the kitchen with your kids, and things like that. It's just ridiculous what they have to go through. So I didn't want it to come down on them either, because they had to play. So everybody kind of agreed, I should say it. It was a general, we all agreed with what I said, but I needed to be the one to figure out what to say. And everybody's like, did you write that down? I said, no, all I had my notes written in front of me were, we love the US and thank your family. It's the only two notes. And I just tried to speak from the heart and talk about, the rule of law and how it wasn't being followed in Minnesota, and that it was wrong, and that we needed, it needed to be, we needed to change. We needed to change. We needed ice out of Minnesota is basically what I said without mentioning that word. But if you see, see what I said, and it was pretty emotional. It was emotional for me. It was emotional for the people. 6 of our athletes on these 2 teams were up there, and the other ones were in the crowd, and there was people crying, not just on our athletes, but reporters when I said what I did. And I'd like to hope that's why I got asked 2 days later, or a day and a half later, hey, ICE is pulling out of Minnesota. Why do you think that happened? I go, I'd like to. It had something to do with what I said, because it was literally like 24 hours, because we were ahead by 7 hours in Italy. So, but yeah, I felt like it was important. I felt like I needed to be the one to do it, and I thought I could handle the aftermath. And there was some blowback right away, especially, But I think the problem is they want people who don't like what you have to say. They say they agree with freedom of speech, as long as you're doing it in a back room where no one can hear, right? Or as long as you talk about it in the locker room. So like, that's not free speech. It isn't free if I can't use my platform to say what I believe. And everybody's, the blowback initially was all, was pretty negative, because the people that want to say something negative are going to say it immediately, right? Because they don't like it. They're like, oh, just shut up and curl, but we have every right to use our platform to say what we think is important, especially when what was happening was happening. And if I don't use that, we wouldn't have got I think, who knows, maybe it did have something to do with what I said, that they left, literally 36 hours later, or not completely, but at least toned down the hardcore stuff that was happening. And, if you're not willing to use that platform, for your free speech, then I just think it's not free if you think you can't, right? And there's plenty of athletes there that came up to me. We are loved around the world. People came up to me and they were like, thank you for what you said. They're not even from the US, right? Because they knew what was going on was wrong too. And so I think, and like what I tried to make clear is we can still love the US and love playing for Team USA, but we don't have to play for this current administration and what's going on in Minnesota. I said we're playing for people that show the same compassion and empathy and love for people they don't know, like what's happening in Minnesota, where people are bringing them food and giving people rides and helping people who are afraid to leave their house, and they're legal citizens who wouldn't leave their house because they're not originally from this country. That's wrong if that's happening. And so I feel like it was probably, other than becoming the oldest US Olympian and having my family be there after all these years of trying, that was my most proud moment of the Olympics. And I stand by what I said. I doubled down on it the next few days, because what the flag is supposed to represent, we agree with and appreciate, but that ain't what was happening here in Minnesota. It just wasn't. The flag wasn't representing what it's supposed to represent. And we talked about the Olympic values too. It's excellence, friendship, and competition, and that we needed to say something, because that isn't what was being represented across the world. But at the Olympics, it was truly people from all over the country. They're so nice. From all over the world, I said. I mean, not country. They were just so great, and people just, I think around the world, I had so many people come up to me and just say, hey, we love the US, but we don't love what's happening right now. So you couldn't have said it better. So I'm very proud of that moment, and I hope it helped in some way bring some, publicity to the problems that were happening in Minnesota.
Well, very inspiring. And I have found myself in various speech opportunities talking about the importance of the rule of law, due process, and the attorneys need our need to defend the Constitution. And I think you are in a platform. You still are as an Olympian, and that's wonderful that you use that platform. And I think as lawyers, those listening, we have a platform as well as community leaders, lawyers, to use our platform. And I agree about the free speech. And I mean, if we don't do it, who's going to do it? And I think it was the right time for the right message. And before we started recording, I was sharing about how I'm representing a Minnesotan who got detained in that early 2026 and shipped to El Paso. And so it's created this unique Texas, Minnesota pipeline where I've met ministers, city council persons, congresswomen, senators. And I honestly, I really didn't know much about Minnesota, but I am very impressed. I'm very impressed with the organization, the drive, it's crazy, the unfortunate events that it caused, this experience of getting to know these other community leaders, but we're working together for a common good, for one individual, but to help for many others who are medical neglect and detention and immigrants in general.
Well, thank you for that. That we need help from everywhere. Anybody that wants to help. I know my firm's helping out on a few of these cases as well with some other lawyers, and there is a lot of wrongs that need to be righted from these last months, and whatever help people can provide to people who can't help themselves. I mean, that's part of the thing. Like, why did I get chosen to speak? Well, I have that background in speaking, right? And people were worried about, what if I say the wrong thing? And I had numerous athletes come up to me and said, I want to do that, but I'm worried about if I lose my following, what if some people don't agree with me? And again, another reason I just felt like, to me, that is less important. I need to use my platform as a lawyer to talk and speak the truth and tell it like it is. And if someone doesn't agree with me, that's fine. And that's one of the biggest problems about, free speech. Like 2 days later, or a day later after I said that, JD Vance made some comment about, if you're going to say something as an athlete in that platform, you should expect to have that backlash. And I just said, most administrations, I think, would say completely different. They would say, hey, I don't have to agree with Mr. Ruohonen, but he has the right to say it. That's what's great about our country, right?
Right.
The moment he said that, I got multiple emails. And, we had some threats and people saying, your wife and daughter should be raped by Somalis.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, like it was bad. Some of the stuff we got right away. Now, most of those people, we did have a security team that would check those threats just to make sure that people weren't there or didn't live by you or things like that. But most of those people live in a trailer in the middle of Texas and have never left the state. But I did have several things like that happen, but the overwhelming response was positive. And since I've got back to Minnesota, it's kind of been a little bit of fame because everybody's like
the local hero.
Yeah, you're the guy that spoke up for Minnesota. So it's been that. I didn't do it for that because I didn't even expect that, but it was it's been great. Like, people are asking to take selfies with me all the time. You're the guy, you talk for us all. And so that to me is an honor, like that people see it that way rather than I was just doing it for myself or my family or even my fellow curlers that were there, that I was speaking for more than just them and speaking for Minnesota abroad and other people in the US. So it's been fantastic.
You literally took one for the team.
Yep, literally. Yep. And you know what helped with that is then we weren't asked we have to go through this thing called the media zone when you're in the Olympics. So you get off right when you're done each day in your game. You have to go through this, there's like 60 spots of media, and sometimes they're full, sometimes nobody's in half of them, but you have to stop as you go through. And so the only person that got asked about that from that point on was me. So the other people could focus on the game, focus on what just happened, get ready for the next game. There was that day after, like I said, I was stopped by 10 different places when ice was pulled out. It was announced in Minnesota, and although not completely, but the surge was backed off. And so I was the one who got stopped, and they got to go focus on getting ready for the next game, which we had that night. So that it all turned out very well, and it was a good decision, and I'm proud of what I did.
Well, I'm proud of it too.
Thank you.
We're getting to the part where we do the rapid questions, and I've been thoroughly inspired through our discussion, and I'm glad you could share. And it gives us a lot of inspiration as lawyers that we can do something else as well. I like to talk a lot about like side hustles and whether you want to call the Olympics a side hustle or not, but having some other interests that you pursue. I think you've given us a good example of how it can make you even better at the practice of law and a better professional leader and person in general. Okay, so first question: what is your favorite board game?
I'd say Codenames.
Oh, okay.
I get out of my cabin a lot. It's kind of fun with our whole family and friends that come up.
Okay, I have to check that one out. Yeah. What would you consider a habit that contributes to your success? And you might have a long list.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that drive I told you about and that passion. I am always thinking about what I can do and how I can do it better. What I've done and how I can do it better. So I think it's that just constant drive to get better at your craft, even though I would say I'm already pretty good at both. Not resting on your laurels, so to speak, and knowing, hey, I can do this better. That's what makes me give my opening statement after I've already done it 3 times and wake up that morning and give it to the wall. In my office, if you were in my office, you might see me talk. You might hear me talking and not be on the phone because I'm giving my opening statement to the window or whatever. So it's that kind of drive, I think, that is what makes me successful. And that I already said that, just I'm willing to try anything. I'm willing to try what someone else has done. I'm willing to come up with my own ideas, and I'll just give it a whirl in a trial. And if it doesn't work as well as I thought, then I know for the next trial. And then I've really come up with some pretty good ideas that I think have helped me win cases.
What would you consider your superpower?
What's my superpower? That's a really tough one. I would say I think I have this innate ability to convince people of what I need them to know, and that I'm on the right side. Not always, but like, because you can't always change everybody, especially in today's polarized society. But I think I can talk to people I don't know and really figure out who they are and what I got to say to get into their head, so to speak, in a good way. We play this game. When jurors come in, I will sometimes look at them with my paralegal and I'll say, he's an accountant and he, makes about this much a year and blah, blah, blah. And I have been right so many times just by looking at somebody or hearing them give a speech or speak about something. And so I think I have this like innate ability to just talk to people and have them think I'm an okay guy, number one, but then know and understand them. I really do.
That reminds me something from like one of the Sherlock Holmes shows where Sherlock Holmes could like tell immediately about a person just by even looking at them, maybe very few words spoken, but it helps you connect and helps find a way to relate. And so that's why it's relevant.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what would be a book or a podcast you would recommend? Sounds like you're an avid reader and podcast listener, watcher.
Yeah. So
you can have more than one if you want.
Most of my reading is legal related or some sports psychology books, but most of my reading is how, try see some things that other people have done. And so I like Don't Eat the Bruises by Keith Mitnick, because I'm a personal injury lawyer and he's a well-known personal injury lawyer from down in Florida originally, although I know he moves around a little bit, but with Morgan & Morgan. And he has this book that has really just come up with some of the greatest ideas ever to try a case. I also like, and I got it right here, is The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. It's a really easy read. There's Randy and his 3 kids. Randy was dying of cancer, and he wrote this book for his kids and his students, and what it talks about are kind of values and life lessons that he would have wanted to teach his kids as they're growing up. And I get kind of goosebumps talking about it because it's like what we do. He wasn't going to be there for his kids because in that picture he was about a year, I think, from passing away, and he needed to teach his young kids, tell them what they should learn because he wasn't going to be there. And it's just a fantastic read, just little quips about, always tell the truth and what that means. And I have used this book in probably 15 or 20 trials. I've read from it and told that story and said, Randy told his kids about that. And I think it's, there's a lot of great little lessons in there. I think it's pretty inspiring and it really is relevant. Like it's got one that's a bad apology is worse than no apology. And, and how many times does that happen in a personal injury case, right? Like, I'm sorry, but don't pay him. Don't pay them for the injuries that they just got. Don't give them any money, but we're sorry. We're truly sorry. And so I've used that. And there's a bunch of them in there. I think I've used 5 or 6 different ones. Plus, I just like to read. And I like thinking about, yeah, he's right. Maybe I should tell my kids this. And so I have. We've went through it together sometimes. So I would say those are my 2 that come to mind right off the bat. I don't read a lot for pleasure, and I know a lot of lawyers do, but I have to read all day long, medical records and books and stuff. I read a little bit for my sports and my sports psychology, but I that's mostly when I'm reading. It's for work to be a better lawyer.
No, that's awesome. I And I think now we're in a day and age where we can take in information through Audible or podcasts or books or what have you. And it's a lot easier to the different modes of community of information digestion, if you will. I'm going to have to get that book. So, how can I've really enjoyed our conversation. I think you are really a testament to resilience and drive and also standing up for what's right. And so I think you've shown that you can have dual careers simultaneously, or they can run concurrently. And I think lawyers are always in awe of like how to make that happen. And you've given us some really good ideas of what that could look like.
You do have to have a good family too that'll help you through that, because it's not always easy. I mean, my wife's a saint. I'm not there a lot. I missed some stuff with my kids growing up, but that was what's so great to have them in Italy with us, to see me get out there, because if you see that, it's online, you can see it, but you can hear them screaming at the top of their lungs when I got to play. And so, you do have to have an understanding family too, because there are some things you're going to miss, when you're trying to do it at this level, but you can have a lot. Everybody should have this out, something else other than being a trial lawyer or a lawyer that they can do for fun. And you don't have to do it at the level I do or as much as you do, but it is your kind of getaway to burn off some energy and steam too.
Yeah, I find that with the podcast and Power Strategy group, like it helps balance me when immigration can be very grim sometimes, a lot, and I need to balance that out. And it uses different skill sets in different parts of your brain, and you get to talk to people about different things too. So I love that. Well, how can people find you or follow you or stay in touch?
So I'm Rich Ruohonen. My last name is spelled Ruohonen on Facebook. I'm at Rich Ruohonen, pretty easy, on Instagram. If you want to reach out about anything, my email is rich@TSR injurylaw.com. So I'm pretty easy to follow or easy to talk about. Most of my social media is less to do with the law, but we're also we have tsrtime.com and at TSR Time for our Instagram. You can find us pretty easy. We do a lot on the law for that. A lot of little videos and stuff that are kind of fun, talking about whatever day it is in Minnesota, boat safety day, or things like that. So we're pretty easy to reach.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for saying yes to being on the podcast, and definitely inspired by all that you've accomplished and what drives you and what you've spoken up for and continue to. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Your Practice. I'm Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We love your reviews, so if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us one and share this podcast with someone else so that they can know what you've been learning on our show. And make sure to check out the Power Up Your Practice book. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. It's packed with 25 chapters of strategies to grow and streamline your firm. And we also have the free Power Hub community on School to keep the conversation going in between the episodes. So make sure to keep powering up your practice, and we'll see you next time.